back to the Peterbrook Chocolatier studio line where we check in with another old friend of the program, Chandler Rome, proud Southern Fried Sports alum, Chandler Rome. How about that intro, Chan?
I can't ask for one better.
Well, you could. I think you could. But Chandler, of course, the beat writer for the Houston Astros with the Houston Chronicle. Chandler, I got to think at this point, as much as anyone, you're itching and ready to go for some baseball.
Yeah, I need something to do. To be honest, I just, I'm out of stuff to write about. I don't know anymore. This is the biggest week of negotiations between the PA and the owners. Maybe one of the bigger weeks in baseball history, at least in recent baseball history. But
yeah,
I mean, we said this exact same thing last week too. The timing of this and kind of how it's coming together is kind of questionable to me. I don't understand why it just sort of seems like this is time doesn't seem to be of the essence for the two sides right now when the clock is ticking and it's starting to tick a little louder.
Are they that far apart on the money? Essentially, that's what we're talking about here. That they could be this tone deaf, I guess, too, to a fan base. That already it seems struggles to sustain loyalty to this entity. So, are they that far apart, Chandler?
They were last week. I mean, the players are not moving off of their agreement to make prorated salaries that was reached in March. The players don't want to move off of that. You saw Max Scherzer last week kind of speak for the entire union. He's a member of the 8-person subcommittee on the players union, which means he has about as much power on that in that entity as anybody. And he said there is no justification for us to take a second pay cut, and we're not going to take one. You saw last night, though, in the proposal that the MLBPA handed over, they are sticking to the prorated salaries, and they're not going to budge off of that. But you did see them at least introduce the possibility of deferrals. And that, the rhetoric today is sort of like, well, it's not a blink per se, it's not a compromise, but at least it's something. That they've introduced at least maybe the remote possibility that they would be okay with talking about deferrals. Now, granted, the proposal last night only called for deferrals if the 2020 postseason is canceled. Now, that's obviously what owners fear the most because the postseason is obviously a bigger moneymaker than the regular season. Mm-hmm. The big fear here is that they're not going to get the playoffs in, or there's going to be a second spike of coronavirus cases, and it's going to force the season to be canceled. So the players last night presented a longer season, 114-game season, which, again, the owners are not going to like because the owners want to get the playoffs in. They want to they think the more games that they play, the more money they're going to lose. So a lot of compromising still needs to be had. It's pretty accepted that the league is going to reject what the players presented last night, but you never know. Maybe the deferrals, maybe that's just a kind of an avenue to open a little bit more dialogue, because as of a couple of weeks ago, the dialogue was pretty much dead because the owners want them to take another pay cut, and the players are not budging off of that.
Are we days away from having to have a decision of some kind, in your opinion, Chandler, to have a baseball season, or can we still go another week or two? You kind of alluded to the lack of urgency right now, seemingly lack of urgency. Where are we at in terms of a time frame in which this needs to get done?
So if you believe Rob Manfred from a couple of weeks ago when he went on CNN, he told Anderson Cooper that that their target was to be playing regular season games in home ballparks in early July. And you've heard July 4th is sort of the target for opening day, just because that is like the idyllic American fantasy, right? So Independence Day, 4th of July, opening day of baseball, kind of try to get some normalcy back. Well, if they want to keep that, dream going, they're going to have to get players, and the players are going to need at least 3 weeks of spring training to ramp up. And it's June 1st today. So you would think that if they want to keep that July 4th target, that something would have to get done. If not this week, I'm talking like next Monday, like early next week, to get these guys, because it's not as easy as just saying, hey, we're reporting to spring, come tomorrow. I mean, the Astros have some guys in Mexico. They have some guys in the Dominican Republic. They have guys all over the country, all over the world. And they've got to get everybody back to wherever they're going to hold spring training. They all have to get tested for the coronavirus. They all have to have their medical stuff in order. So it's not as easy as just saying, hey, we got a deal, let's report tomorrow. There's still a lot of logistics and stuff that have to be worked out if and when a deal comes. So 3 weeks is going to be needed, and when you start looking at the calendar, and if you want to adhere to that July 4th, then it's got to come sometime this week. But then, you don't know. I mean, are the owners or other players comfortable with starting the season later? Started in August and play through November. I'm not sure. I don't know. I just know that the original timeframe and the original kind of fantasy was a 4th of July opening day. And if something doesn't get done this week or early next week, that dream looks like it's going to kind of start to die.
And meanwhile, behind the backdrop of far more important global issues in society, like the pandemic, like the social unrest in recent months around our country, the cheating scandal with the Astros continues to fly beneath the radar. Boy, I'll tell you, from a PR standpoint, it's been awful for the rest of us, but for the Astros, from that perspective, it hadn't worked out all that poorly, I guess.
No, I mean, you hate to characterize it like that, especially with what the country is embroiled in right now, and what the world's been embroiled in. The
sure.
But certainly, I mean, you can't deny it. I mean, it's a fact. I mean, this is the Astros were saved, if you will, for a season worth of just absolute abuse on the road that they were going to take. I don't think, I said this the last time I was on the show, I don't think the pandemic's going to make people forget that they cheated. I think the first time that fans are allowed back in the stands when they go on the road, they're going to get booed. Will it be as intense? Will it be as hate-fueled? Will it be as visceral as it was going to be this year? I'm not sure. It would be tough for me to project that, just because time does heal most wounds, and the further you get away from something, and when you go through things like the pandemic, or when you go through things like what the country's embroiled in right now, maybe you assign things like banging a trash can or cheating in a baseball game, maybe you assign that proper perspective. But fans are looking for ways to feel normal, and for some people that's going to be booing the Astros because the Astros are cheating. So the minute the fans get let back in the stands, the Astros are going to feel it all over again. But they certainly aren't going to feel it to any effect that they were going to feel it on the road.
Hey, Chandler, as always, great stuff with us here on the program. Great stuff there with the Houston Chronicle. We appreciate you. Thanks, man.
All right, thanks.